कृपा कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। हरिः ओम श्री सद्गुरु परमात्मने नमः। सच्चिदानंद भगवान की जय। कृष्ण भगवान की जय। गीता माता की जय। हरि ओम। We are discussing Bhagavad Gita, second chapter. Yesterday we saw 65th sloka. We shall see it again. Prasade sarvadukhanam hanihi asya upajayate prasanna chetaso hyasu buddhi paryavatishthate. We are discussing the description of a man of wisdom, how he behaves, how his state of mind, and how he talks, how he walks about, all these according to the answer to the question of Arjuna. So Lord Krishna explains in that peace, prasade, we were discussing on the prasad. Yesterday we talked about prasad. Raga dvesa vijuktestu visayan indriyan rindesharan atma vaseri vidheyatma prasadam adhigacchati. He attends prasadam, it is peace. Prasad means, generally we understand prasad means whatever is offered to the God, some food, some good fruits and sweets, etc. Whatever we offer to the Lord and get it as prasad. Prasad means when God has accepted it according to our feelings, devotion, faith, etc., then he becomes satisfied. Satisfaction. He is satisfied with the all these offerings, and he becomes gracious towards us. As a result, whatever we have offered to him, we take it as his grace. That is called prasad. Prasad means grace. Grace means also, because God has become happy with your offerings, grace means a state of happiness of the mind. So that is called prasad. Happiness comes when mind is balanced. So prasad means it is steady mind, or we can say peace. Peace of mind is known as prasadam. So he says in the peace, prasade sarvadukhanam hanirasyo pajayate. When you attain that peace, so all the dukkha, unhappiness gets destroyed naturally. In that peace, all pains are destroyed, for the intellect of the tranquil mind soon becomes steady. When happiness is there and the tranquility of the mind is attained, naturally mind becomes steady. So this is how the steady-minded person, that means a man of wisdom, has his mind. When the mental peace is attained, there is no hankering after sense objects. When mind is steadied, no desires, we have seen it before, all the desires are controlled. So mind has no way to be restless. It has to be steadied. When the mental peace is attained, mind has become steadied. There is no hankering for the sense objects. The yogi has perfect mastery over the intellect, reasoning power. You say reason means when the intellect starts deciding things, that is called reasoning. How it is, why it is, what it is, all these. So in that state, mind has to be active. It cannot be steadied. So no reasoning is there. The intellect abides in the self. It has become steadied. So it is quite steady now. The miseries of the body and the mind has come to an end now. There is no question of unhappiness or miseries of the mind and body. Mind is steadied, and body also naturally is the servant of the mind, and the senses have been controlled. We have seen it before. So now body, mind, senses, everything is under control. Such a person is known as man of wisdom, steady wisdom. One point is there, what is there in the steady wisdom and wisdom? What is the difference? Wisdom is wisdom. That means the knowledge of the self. It is attained only when the mind gets steadied. That is called wisdom. So what is the meaning of steady wisdom? We have discussed it little before. We have not raised this question at that time. What is called steady wisdom? Steady wisdom means when you have already attained once that steady state of the mind, yet if at all your senses are not fully under control and there is chance of the mind to go by the way of the senses, we have discussed it. When the horses are turbulent, the chariot can meet accident. The horses will take you away because they are not under control, and they will put this chariot in some ditch. Accident happens. The senses are taken as the horses. When the senses are very turbulent, they are not under control. There is every chance of the mind to accompany the senses and go and become extrovert, go wandering. So, once you have tasted the honey, of course you will not hanker for jaggery. But if the mind with the senses, that means the taste, wants to taste it again and again, there is a chance of falling down to the wage of the senses. So senses have to be controlled completely for a long time, and they should be rooted out from its root itself by controlling the taste and the eye to see good forms or sound. All these, they should be controlled thoroughly well. And then if the mind is steadied for a long time, then there is less chance of coming down, because we have understood when the person enters, the mind enters into the samadhi state, to that steady state. Before that there will be some tendency. That tendency will be very dangerous. It will draw back the mind from that steady state, and it will react in a redoubled way. Reaction becomes terrific. If you have fasted for 5-6 days, then of course you have controlled your senses forcibly. And when you want to break the fasting, naturally you will crave to eat anything you like, anything you get. That reaction starts very, very, very dangerously. As much you control the senses, so much they will be always having the outgoing tendency. We have seen the children, when you forbid a child to do something, he will somehow or other he will do the thing. A natural tendency to go against the control is there in the nature. So what Lord Krishna, in way of explaining the state of a steady wisdom, he also warns the seekers that if the senses are not fully controlled, by giving up all the desires and association with the sense objects and attachment towards them, if all these are not fully controlled for a long time, your habits are thoroughly changed, there is of course no chance. But if it is done for little time, there is every chance the mind will take you away from the spiritual path. So he is again and again giving the symptoms of a steady wisdom man how he controls his mind thoroughly well.
So it's logically like sugar patient, even if he knows that sugar,
Yes, it is a natural tendency.
he craves for eating sweets.
He eats all the sweets hidingly. Shall I tell a story? We had some Guru Bhai, Purushottam ji. Have you seen him, Satish ji? Purushottam. He didn't take sannyas, he had taken brahmacharya from Swamiji Maharaj. And he had this sugar. And he was suffering like anything. He used to take so many medicines for sugar. And once it so happened he had a heart attack, sugar, high sugar level, and he was admitted in our Jolly Grant Hospital from ashram side. Some other Guru Bhais were attending him. It was summer day, midday, when for 1 hour or so, the hospital, all the staffs, they take rest, they go for lunch. At that time when he saw nobody is around him, very calmly he went out and purchased some mangoes and ate with sugar outside and washed his hands and came silently and lie down in the bed in the hospital. And after 1 or 2 hours, when the doctor comes for a round, he examines him. 2 hours before, the sugar was under control, and how it raised so high? What is the reason? We are looking after him so seriously. What has happened? No reason was found. He hid it. He didn't tell anybody. It happened once or twice and he had to pass away. He had to pass away. If you cheat the doctor, who can save you?
So if we keep this logically, so in the so-called this waking state, yes, like one is saying, okay, not trying to avoid or trying to control and all these things, but yet in the dream, still he has to have the control over the senses.
In the dream also, because the tendency works everywhere. That means inner flow. What you think intensely, that impressions work. So in the dream also, in the deep sleep also, or else in the deep sleep, just like sleepwalk, you will get up and find out some sugar and eat it.
Because Swamiji was sharing that during the waking hours, like whatever you deal with it, that is the same thing that you get it in the dream.
Yes, yes.
So if you oppose them in the waking state,
It will have reaction in the dream.
they will come.
So one must be very, very careful. Every step you have to be careful. Now, prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasya upajayate prasanna chetasavo hasu buddhi paryavasthite. One who attains this peace of mind, then his mind is under control and he gets that steady wisdom and all his buddhi, intellect is under control and all the miseries are over. नास्ति बुद्धि अयुक्तस्य न च अयुक्तस्य भावना न चाभावयतः शांति अशांतस्य कुतः सुखम. There is no knowledge of the self to the unsteady, and to the unsteady no meditation is possible. Bhavana. Bhavana means steady thought. That is called meditation. And to the unmeditative person, there can be no peace. If the mind is restless, it is not able to meditate. So naturally, you cannot attain peace. And if there is no peace, how can you expect happiness? No way. How can there be happiness? The man who cannot fix his mind in meditation cannot have knowledge of the self. The unsteady man cannot practice meditation. He cannot have even intense devotion to this self-knowledge, nor can he have burning longing for liberation or moksha. He who does not practice meditations cannot possess peace of mind. Meditation is the only way. How can the man who has no peace of mind enjoy happiness? There should be some, you see, as per Gurudev Swami Sivanji, he gives his experiential explanation to the state of mind of the seekers, how a seeker, sincere seeker should feel. He says, unless and until you feel like a fish out of water, how much the fish out of water becomes restless to go back to the water. Similarly, a sincere seeker should feel to have realization of the self. Then only your mind will be steadied, you will strive for that steadiness of mind and you will achieve success. Or else it is not easy to control the mind. Desire is Trishna, thirsting for the sense object is the enemy of peace. And there is some inner hankering for the sense objects. Outwardly, as much as you can control the senses, but inwardly there will be some pull. No. Just like the uncontrolled children. Before you, they will do whatever you ask them to do because of fear of you. And the moment you see other sides, they will play mischief. Similarly, the mind acts as long as you are sincerely attending upon the senses and the mind, of course they will obey you. they will not think of the sense objects. Little carelessness, it will react so severely. They will take away from the path. So he says, desire or trishna, thirsting for the sense objects, is the enemy of peace. It is always, it has always a tendency to pull you back from meditation and throw you outside in the forest of sense objects. Go and roam about there. There cannot be an idea or thing of happiness for a man who is thirsting for sensual objects. The mind will be ever restless and will be hankering for the objects. Only when this thirsting for sense objects dies, then only a man does enjoy peace. Only then can he meditate and rest in the self, rest in peace. Or else it is impossible. So again and again he is pointing out these points of a steadfast man, because the seekers should be very, very careful. Indriyanam hi charatam, he is giving the state of uncontrolled senses. Indriyanahim charatam janmano nu vidhiyate tadasya harati pragyam vayur naivam vayur miva ambhasi. समुद्र में जैसे नाव तूफान में उलट पुलट हो जाता है, just as the boat gets disturbed and it sinks in the water by a strong stormy wind. Similarly, one who has no control over the senses, they take you away from the path of the spirituality, and they will throw you somewhere in the ditch. For the mind which follows in the wake of the wandering senses carries away his discrimination, as the wind carries away a boat on the waters. The mind which constantly dwells in the sense objects and moves in company with the sense destroys altogether the discriminatory power of the man. Just as the wind carries away a boat from its course, so also the mind carries away the aspirant from the spiritual path and turns him towards the objects of the senses. So one should be very, very careful, and one who controls in these conditions, one who controls these senses and mind. Tasmad yasya mahavaho nigrihitani sarvasaha. So, seeing the difficulty to control the mind and senses. A sincere sadhak, when controls his mind and senses in such a situation and keeps all these fixed on the self. Properly he meditates on the self. Then only, O Arjuna, Indriyani indriyarthevya tasya prajna pratishtita. When the senses are withdrawn from the sense objects, then only he is said to be a man of steady wisdom, or else not. Once you may control your mind and meditate for a moment, but next moment what happens? You are a gone case.
So then logically he has to be in every second he has to be
Every moment one should be careful, attentive and aware of his senses. They are the greatest enemies.
So
You have protected your enemies in your house, just like a snake in your bedroom and hiding in the bed, inside the bed, and you are sleeping over it. Similarly, we are leading our lives. All the Indriyas, they are enemies and they are free in our body house. They are allowed to do anything and everything they like. And how can you have happiness? If a cobra is hidden in your bedroom, inside your bed, and you are sleeping over it, the moment you know it, how can you sleep peacefully?
So in relativity, every second should be a logical and analytical point of view.
Exactly. Every moment one should be careful. Tasmadasya Mahabaho, O mighty Arjun, therefore his knowledge is steady whose senses are completely restrained from the sense objects. It is not for a while, completely, forever. When the senses are completely controlled, the mind cannot wander wildly in the sensual groups. It becomes steady like the lamp in a windless place. The yogi is now established in the self and his knowledge is steadied. He is called Sthita Prajna. Ya nisa sarvabhutanam tasyam jagarti sanjami yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisa pasyato munehe. Now he gives the comparison between a controlled senses under control, a man of senses under control, and a man of senses without control. What is the comparison? What is the state of both when compared to each other? He is giving this statement. Janisha sarvabhutanam. Generally, ordinary people, they don't have any control of the senses. And these such ordinary worldly persons, they have different lifestyles, different understanding, different attitude and state of mind. And one who is always alert and his senses are under control, mind is under control, his life will be totally different from this worldly person. So how do they see each other? How do they see each other? He says, where a man of uncontrolled senses and mind, he is awakened. That means he is alert. That means he thinks his worldly mind is awakened. We think we are in the waking state. No, it is waking for you because you are alert in these sense objects. But for a man of control mind and senses, it is night for them. They don't see the sense objects as something useful. When you don't see the objects, that is what you call night, darkness. And when you are able to see the objects clearly and behave with it, then you call it waking state. So where the worldly persons are awake means they are dealing with the sense objects freely, clearly, they see it clearly, they say it is reality. There, a man of controlled senses and mind, he doesn't see all these. He sees it as useless fellows or useless objects. So there they don't see any objects useful. So it is night for them. And where these controlled mind and senses awake, that means in the self, which is not expressible by the speech or mind, by any language, that is unknown to the worldly people. So worldly people don't see anything, unseen objects. That means the self, they know nothing. So that is like a night, deep sleep state for the worldly people. Where the controlled man is awakened, he enjoys it, he sees everything clearly. So they are opposite to each other, just opposite. That which is night to all beings, in that the self-controlled man is awake. When all beings are awake, that is night for the sage who sees clearly. That which is real for the worldly minded people is illusion for the sage. The vice versa is the sage lives in the self. This is day for him. He is unconscious of the worldly phenomena. They are night for him. As it were, the ordinary man is unconscious of the real nature of the life. In the spirit of self, that is night for them. He is experiencing the objects of sensual enjoyment. So the self is unseen, unknown for them. This is day for him. The self is non-entity for him. for a worldly man. For a sage, this world is a non-entity. For worldly people, self is a non-entity. They don't know anything about it. Just opposite to each other. The worldly-minded people are in utter darkness, as they have no knowledge of the self. What is darkness for them is all light for the sage. The self, Atman or Brahman, is night for the worldly-minded persons. But the sage is fully awake there. He is directly cognizing the supreme reality, the light of lights. He is full of illumination and Atma-jnana, the self-knowledge. So in this way, the worldly people, what the worldly people see, the sage cannot, he doesn't. And whatever is seen by the sage is unknown, unseen for the worldly people. So I think tomorrow we shall see further. For such a sage, what is the conditions of his senses and mind. He gives the example, tomorrow we shall see. Just as all the water, wherever it may be, it has tendency to go towards the ocean. By many means, the water falls from the clouds as rainwater, and they are accumulated, and they make some small streams or hilly rivers, and they get accumulated in small streams, and they join with the big rivers, and in the end they meet the ocean only. They say, akasad patitam toyam yatha gacchati sagaram. Wherever any water is there, whatever water falls from the clouds, from the sky, they go to the ocean only. Similarly, he gives the example. When all the senses, they are withdrawn from the sense objects and they meet the self in the end, which is all pervading, like as big, more spacious, more expanded than this ocean. The senses, they merge there. They cannot come out. Just like a drop of water mingles in the ocean, you cannot take out the same drop of water from the ocean. It is merged forever. We shall see it tomorrow. Hari Om. Hari Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnada Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadguru Bhagavan ki jai. Satchidananda Bhagavan ki jai. Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. Gita Mata ki jai. Hare